Hi friends, welcome to Krako's VRC video series. Every week we'll be bringing you 3 important tests for VRC, important questions that you must solve regularly so that you can ace VRC section. VRC section is one of those sections where consistent practice is extremely important. You see the gains after a few months. There is no immediate improvement in VRC. So in such cases, you have to put in efforts regularly for months on end before you see any improvement. With that thought in mind, what we have decided is that we will give you regular tests, 3 a week, which you can solve along with us. We'll also give you a PDF of the question so you can actually try attempting the set by yourself and then solve it along with us. So look at the PDF, download it, try to solve the RC or the VA questions, then see the video. Do this consistently. These are only 3 tests a week, so it is extremely doable. But do this consistently and slowly over time you will see yourself improving. So I hope to see you come in every single week and solve these 3 tests. If you need more VRC practice tests, just search for Krako VRC sets and you will get a lot more tests like these. Keep solving, keep practicing and keep getting better. I hope to see all of you completely crack the VRC section in CAT 2026. Hi friends, welcome to Krako's video series. I'm Saili Kale. In this particular passage, we'll be taking a look at a passage which is based on the idea of novels which are centered around the Indian Ocean. So the author says that normally when we had post-colonial literature, there was this particular template or world for a novel, but I have selected novels which essentially depart from that, and he calls these set of novels as the Indian Ocean novels. So let's take a look at the passage. We'll go paragraph by paragraph and then take a look at the questions. For early post-colonial literature, the world of the novel was often the nation. Post-colonial novels were usually concerned with national questions. Sometimes the whole story of the novel was taken as an allegory of the nation, whether India or Tanzania. This was important for supporting anti-colonial nationalism, but could also be limiting and land-focused and inward-looking. So, what happened post-colonial literature? So, basically, after, say, India's independence or the independence of many of these colonies, you had post-colonial literature. So, Indians writing about India in English as such. So, post-colonial literature, in many ways, had a very limited worldview. So, when India wrote about after independence, when Indians wrote novels, the world of that particular novel would be India. They would essentially talk only about their own particular country. That was important for having this notion of India, especially after gaining independence. You wanted to have a notion of an independent India. It was important for anti-colonialism as such, to define a identity of your country as such. But what happened is that that would often be very limited in its worldview. You'd only consider that, okay, this is the limits of my country, I have to only talk about country. It was sometimes so the entire novel would be essentially about the identity of the country or an allegory for the country as such. But it was essential for the countries which became independent in the post-colonial times to essentially define themselves through those novels. So they were the entire world was that nation as such. So they were, but because of that, the scope became limiting. It was inward looking. So you were not open-minded about what is going on outside. You were looking only inwards as to how do I identify and define this country that has suddenly become like post the colonialism. You want to define an identity for yourself, right? So post-colonial literature, novels, world was often limited to the nation. And the drawback of this, while this was important in the post-colonial times to have for anti-colonial nationalism to have a sense of national identity, it was important. But there were limitations of it. The limitations was that this would be inward looking and land focused. So you are looking only at your geographical area, you don't care about what is happening outside of your geography. So while there was a need for it, while it is understandable why that happened, but there were limitations of it. My new book, Writing Ocean Worlds, explores another kind of world of the novel, not the village or nation, but the Indian Ocean world. The book describes a set of novels in which the Indian Ocean is the center of the story. It focuses on the novelists Amitav Ghosh, Abdul Razak Gurnah, Lindsay Collin, and Joseph Conrad, who have centered the Indian Ocean world in the majority of their novels. Their work reveals a world that is outward looking, full of movement, border crossing, and south-south interconnection. They are all very different from colonially inclined Conrad to radically anti-capitalist, Colin, but together draw on and shape a wider sense of the Indian Ocean space through themes, images, metaphors, and language. This has the effect of remapping the world in the reader's mind as it is as centered in the interconnected global south. Now, the author is essentially introducing another type of novels, which are he calls the Indian Ocean World novels. So these are not centered around a country. So these are not only centered around India or a village or a nation as such. These are essentially centered around the Indian Ocean and all the countries and geographies that are encompassed by the Indian Ocean as such. So here he mentions like the novelist Amitav Ghosh, Abdul Razak Gurna, all of these people have written in a way that the so your novel is going to be set in some context, right? There'll be like some place or the background of the novel. Sometimes the background of the novel is a very small background, only a village, for example, Malgudi days. Or it can be a very big background. In the case of these novels, the background or the world of the novels is the Indian Ocean and all the areas of the Indian Ocean as such. Now, why is the author interested in these novels? What is the advantage of these kind of novels? The point is that these kind of novels are outward looking, and they look at the interconnections between all of these areas. So they understand the interconnections between different states, different places which are there in the Indian Ocean area. So this Indian Ocean area starts from like India, the Arab states, Africa, everybody. And so these kind of novels are not just looking at one nation or one village, they are looking at many of these places together and they are exploring the interconnectedness of these places. Now, why is this important? So the author says that the content of the novels can be very different. So some of them are colonially inclined, so that is sympathetic towards colonialism like Conrad, or those who are extremely anti-capitalist like Colin. So the content changes. But what happens is that when you focus on this area, you put the view at this area, if you this is the perspective on which you write, what happens is that you explore this south-south interconnection that happens. So south-south interconnection is basically you have global north, which is essentially US, UK and the western countries, and the global south, which is essentially South Asian countries, the Middle East and African countries. These are essentially poorer countries. These are called the global south. So basically, when you have an Indian Ocean kind of a worldview, you're looking at the interconnectedness between the global south, because you have Africa, one coast of Africa for the Indian Ocean, the other coast is along Asia after passing the Middle East as such. So these novels, these are especially important because they explore the interconnectedness of the global south. They are outward looking. Okay, so because of this, the author feels that these are important because they have an effect of remapping the world in the reader's mind. For example, in the reader's mind, you have this idea about what a nation is or where countries are, but because this is now a different perspective, a perspective which is very rare. Either the perspective is that, okay, this nation is the only thing that I will care about and write about, so there is a very limited perspective, or there is this Eurocentricity or a Western centricity where you are looking at only at the global north as such. This is the first time you are looking at the global south as a whole and the interconnectedness of it. So a reader is for the first time being exposed to the connections between the global south, and this is changing the perceptions of readers about the global south. So this changes perceptions, which the author calls as remapping of the world as such. Now let's take a look at the next paragraph. The Indian Ocean world is a term used to describe the very long-lasting connections among the coasts of East Africa, the Arab coast and South and East Asia. These connections were made possible by the geography of the Indian Ocean. For much of history, travel by sea was much easier than by land, which meant that the port cities very far apart were often more easily connected to each other than much closer inland cities. Historical and archaeological evidence suggests that what we now call globalization first appeared in the Indian Ocean. This is the interconnected oceanic world referenced and produced by novels in my book. So here, why is the author essentially talking about the Indian Ocean world as such? Why specifically the Indian Ocean world? So if you take, this is Africa, these are the northeastern states, and this is India over here, and this is East Asia, this is South Asia. So if you look at the Indian Ocean, this is connecting a large part of the global south to each other. So you have Africa connected, Middle East connected, India connected, South Asia connected, even East Asia connected. So because of this, what exactly is the author saying? The Indian Ocean is a huge connector of very different ports. Now the idea over here is that these ports were very interconnected in terms of transportability. So for example, you would think that okay, most of the culture or interaction would be within, like say, a country. For example, there would be a lot of interaction within India. But if you consider India land as such, the land mass is huge. So there would be within, it was easier to travel across the sea for some part of the early centuries rather than traveling inland, because of the ships were easier to navigate rather than travel inland as such. Without trains and all, the inland travel was actually harder than ship travel. And the impact of this basically was that ports were very well connected. So you might think that the port of Bombay is over here and there's East African port over here and this distance is huge, but because of the ships, they were actually far closely connected than you would actually expect. So what you see is that there was globalization because of these interconnections of these ports. So all these kind of different ports along the Indian Ocean, they were interconnected. There was a exchange of culture and they were more easily connected than inland cities as such. So there is historical and archaeological evidence showing that globalization first appeared in the Indian Ocean. So here the author is essentially saying that why is this Indian Ocean worldview important? Because essentially this Indian Ocean is a connection or shows a connection of the interconnectedness of the global south, and the global south is actually where the globalization first started, because the global south, the ports were very well connected through the Indian Ocean, and that is basically where the interconnectedness between these different parts first started. So when you have novels which are based in these kind of worlds, it is very interesting because this is for the first time you are realizing that so many things actually, these places were so interconnected and influencing each other, and globalization actually started over here. There was clearly a interconnectedness and exchange of culture and ideas across this kind of places as such. So now you get to see why the author is essentially putting so much emphasis on the Indian Ocean world as such. So this is basically the interconnected oceanic world referenced and produced by the novels in my book. For their part, Ghosh, Gurna, Colin and even Conrad reference a different set of histories and geographies than ones most commonly found in fiction in English. Those commonly found are mostly centered in Europe or US, assume a background of Christianity and whiteness, and mention places like Paris and New York. The novels in my book highlight instead a largely Islamic space, feature characters of color and centralize the ports of Malindi, Mombasa, Aden, Java and Bombay. It's a densely imagined, richly sensory image of a southern cosmopolitan culture, which provides for an enlarged sense of place in the world. So here what is the author saying? Why is this important to actually see this? So if you see literature, especially fiction till now, so the mainstream literature or fiction which is common as such, this is basically about US and the Europe. This is focused on US and Europe. All your characters are from US and Europe. They are predominantly white. So they have their ideas, they are Christian. So if you look at the literature that you mostly read, you are looking at things from the perspective of a white person who is in the US and UK. You are talking about life in Paris and New York. You are not really looking at many of these people of color who are Indians, Africans and Middle Eastern people, who essentially were never featured in the literature because the literature was written by white guys living in these countries. So in the common fiction novels that the author is referring to as like mostly what we see, the protagonists are from US and Europe, they are white, they are Christian, and that is essentially their worldview. On the other hand, in the Indian Ocean world, the focus is on Africa, Middle East and South and East Asia. So we are now looking at people of color. So these are not white people. So essentially people of color are the focus of the stories. The stories are told from their perspective. This is mostly Islamic space. So basically there is a change in the religious and cultural background which is essentially explored in these novels. You do not essentially explore the common cultural and religious background that was explored in most of the literature. The
background or social or cultural or religious background of the Indian Ocean world novels is very different. The people are not white, they are not Christian, they are from a different region and have different cultures. So that is why you are essentially looking at a underrepresented set of people. While most literature represents this US Europe white Christian people, this set of novels essentially shows or brings to light an underrepresented source of people, because people never really saw people of color much in literature. They would never be the protagonist, they'd never be the hero. Most of the culture or most of the books were written with this white perspective. So this is therefore a huge departure from what you read generally. This remapping is particularly powerful for the representation of Africa. In the fiction, sailors and travelers are not all European. African as well as Indian and Arab characters are traders, nakhodas, dhow ship captains, runaways, villains, missionaries and activists. This does not mean that the Indian Ocean Africa is romanticized. Migration is often a matter of force. Travel is portrayed as abandonment rather than adventure. Freedoms are kept from women and slavery is rife. What it does mean is that the African part of the Indian Ocean plays an active role in its long, rich history and therefore in the wider world. So the author says that for the most of the time you have these white protagonists, white character as such. But here the focus is on African and Arabs and Indians, etc. So the focus is on characters which are essentially non-white, non-European, and they are not romanticizing Africa, they are not romanticizing any part of this world. So they are not saying that, okay, everything was hunky-dory, now we are going to show you this kind of romanticized, fictionalized version of what happened in Africa or in India, etc. This is not romanticized. But what is the good part of this? Why is it important that you see these people of color and see their stories and hear stories from their perspective? So for the first time you are looking at them not just as side characters but as main characters. They are traders, nakhodas, runaways, villains, missionaries, activists. So they are playing a huge number of, like, your understanding of them is much deeper over here than you would when when all of literature was focused from the white perspective. You would have no idea about these people as such. So here the situation is not romanticized, but for the first time it actually is getting to play an active role in the storytelling. You are getting to see people you would not normally see in novels, in these kind of novels. So their active role in the literature, in fiction, and it is basically you are essentially highlighting people, you are raising awareness about people, you are bringing people and stories that are not often shared into the limelight as such. So this is basically the author is saying that while mostly that the characters of other literature are like white and Christian, here for the first time there is representation of non-white people, especially from Africa, from India, from Arab countries, etc. So it's not being romanticized. They are not saying that Africans are like nothing is wrong in Africa, or there's nothing wrong, or there is forced migration, there's slavery, there are many things which are depicted in the novels to show the how life actually is. But at least the life is being depicted over here. Otherwise, you are like largely ignoring this population as such. So for first time, Global South is actually getting recognition and highlighted. So it is being highlighted as such. So if you take a look at the entire passage in entirety, it is about the Global South interconnectedness, which is explored in the Indian Ocean world novels. Normally you have these novels which were in post-colonial literature, you would have novels which were very focused on a particular nation. So after independence India, after independence Tanzania, only like very focused on one particular nation as such. But the author says that I want to look at novels which are essentially not limited to a nation, but are looking or set the context as the Indian Ocean as such. And why does he do that? Because those kind of novels will be outward looking. They'll be looking at the interconnectedness between the different ports that are there in this particular part. And especially because this part is the Global South. So any kind of cosmopolitanism there, any kind of globalization there is of interest, because these are underrepresented people. And the author says that for the first time you have people from Africa, Asia and Arab states being shown in detail, being represented for first time, being highlighted for first time. So this is the point of why the author has essentially chosen these set of novels which show the global south, the interconnectedness of the global south, an authentic version of characters from the global south as such. So now that we understand what the passage is about, let's take a look at the questions. Which one of the following statements is not true about migration in the Indian Ocean world? The Indian Ocean world's migration networks connected the global north with the global south. No, the Indian Ocean world's migration networks were connecting global south with global south. It is the interconnectedness of the global south as such, south to south connection. It is not north to south connection. So this is clearly incorrect. The interconnection network of the Indian Ocean was connecting global south to other parts of the south. So it is interconnectedness of the global south. East Africa, Asia, Middle East, South Asia, all of these are part of global south. There is no global north over here. Global north is like West Europe and US, which is not connected to the Indian Ocean. So A is incorrect. Geographical location rather than geographical proximity determined the choice of destination for migrants. This is true. It has been said that ports were actually far more interconnected to each other than inland cities were. So it was not proximity which was deciding how connected you are, but rather the where the particular location is. So if a port which is on the coast, if different ports which were on the coast were much better connected than, though they were further apart, than a port and even an inland city or two different inland cities. So this is true according to the passage. So I would say, whereas which of these is not true? So A is not true. So A would be the answer. This is true as per the passage. So A would be the answer. The Indian Ocean world's migration networks were shaped by religious and commercial histories of the region. The author has said how the religious and commercial history of this region is very different from that of other fiction novels. So for other fictional novels, you would have Eurocentric views, you would have white Christian views as such. Here you would have a largely Islamic space, you would have people from the global south, from Africa, Middle East, South Asia, East Asia, etc. So here the author is exploring how these novels were influenced by the specific context of the fact that they were written in a non-Christian space and written in an area with a very different culture as such. So Indian Ocean migration networks were shaped by these religious and commercial histories. They were essentially shaped, the migration was often a matter of force. Freedoms were kept from women, slavery was rife, and many times the author has said that it actually, the colors, characterizations, all of these played a huge role in the migration of people. So it was a southern cosmopolitan culture with a enlarged sense of place. So essentially this was the migration networks were based on interconnection of the global south, and it was influenced by the religious and social and commercial aspects of this particular region. So this is also true. So C also can be eliminated. Migration in the Indian Ocean world was an ambivalent experience. This is also true. Ambivalent basically means not entirely positive, not entirely negative. So it is not entirely positive because there was slavery, there was forced migration, travel was often a abandonment than adventure. So there were negative aspects also. Positive aspects were that it was a cosmopolitan culture. There was trade, there was relationship across port cities, there was interconnectedness. So it had both positives as well as negatives, which means that this was an ambivalent experience. So A would be the right answer. The second question is, on the basis of the nature of the relationship between the items in each pair, choose the odd pair out. Indian Ocean novels outward looking. So the author is saying that his Indian Ocean novels are outward looking. It is full of border crossing, all of this. It is showing a broader picture of the entire region rather than being limited to one particular nation. So this is true. These Indian Ocean novels are outward looking. So this is true as such. This is a true association between the novel and the characteristic. Post-colonial novels, border crossing. This is not true. Post-colonial novels, there was no border crossing. It was inward looking. It was limited to a nation. There was no border crossing as such. Border crossing was there in the Indian Ocean novels. So this is a false combination between the novel and a characteristics. Indian Ocean world and slavery. The author has said the Indian Ocean world was not a perfect world. There were many things including forced migration and slavery. So this is also a true characteristic of the world as such. So I'd say this is a true combination of place and characteristic, or like theme and characteristic. Post-colonial novels, anti-colonial nationalism. This was a feature of post-colonial novels. It was important for supporting anti-colonial nationalism. So, in a way, the characteristics of post-colonial novels actually supported this. So, this is essentially a feature or a result of the post-colonial novels. So, even these two are related to each other. So, only B is a pair where post-colonial novels are not related to border crossing. So, B would be the right answer. The third question is, all of the following statements, if true, would weaken the passage's claim about the relationship between mainstream English language fiction and the Indian Ocean novels, except. So, we want to see which wouldn't weaken. The depiction of Africa in most Indian Ocean novels is driven by post-colonial nostalgia for an idyllic past. So, post-colonial nostalgia for an idyllic past is basically you are harping back to an era which did not, which has long gone as such. But that is not the case. So basically you are saying, the author was saying that if you look at the Indian Ocean novels, they are showing the rich history and realistic life of people who actually lived there. So it was bringing these guys, or it was highlighting their lives. It was bringing them into, they gave them an enlarged sense of place in the world. Essentially, they played an active role in the rich history and therefore that of the wider world. So essentially what is being mentioned in the last two paragraphs, that Africa was being brought onto the center stage. It was being shown in a better light. It was being shown to the world. If A is true, then the Indian Ocean novels were not really highlighting the real Africa or the real global south as such. It was not showing their rich history and interconnectedness. It was instead showing something which was not there. If there was post-colonial nostalgia and that was actually affecting the depiction, then the Indian Ocean novels would not be a good source of actually highlighting Africa, right? If there was a distortion in how Africa was represented, the author would not agree that these are a good depiction of or highlighting Africa as such. So this does weaken the author's claim. The depiction of Africa in most Indian Ocean novels is driven by an Orientalist imagination of its cultural crudeness. Orientalist imagination is basically a Western European imagination of Asia. So basically how whites look at non-whites. So if the Indian Ocean novels are written from the perspective of whites looking at non-whites, and that is the perspective they've been, so this will definitely not be a perspective where you highlight the rich cultural history of the region. You'll in fact be highlighting all these negative stereotypes that are there about Asia, about like Eastern Africa, etc. So this is the opposite of what is given in the passage. The author is very happy that in these novels you are giving the global south its due. You are giving the, you are highlighting the global south, especially Africa as such. If this is true, in fact, it is humiliating the global south. If B is true, then the Indian Ocean world would not be doing the global south any favor. It would actually be humiliating it. So B, if true, is actually going to weaken the author's arguments. Very few mainstream English language novels have historically been set in American and European metropolitan cities. Now, if this is the case, then the authors claim that there was a whiteness, Eurocentric view. All these things were like set up in like Paris or New York, and the characters were white Europeans. That claim essentially is rejected if very few of them were actually settled, or very few of them were set in Europe and America. Then you can't really say that, okay, the Indian Ocean novels are very different because they're set far away from that. If that was, the point was that why is Indian Ocean novels, why is this particularly remapping the ideas of Global South? Because you had these ideas that were set from the Western point of view. Now, because you see these kind of novels, your idea of the Global South will be changed. Now, if C is true, then there was no predominantly white European idea that was shown in literature. So, if C is true, then the author's point is weakened. Most mainstream English language novels have historically privileged a Christian white male experience of travel and adventure. If this is true, this is actually in line with what the author is saying. See, the author is saying that the Global South members, that is Indians, Arabs, Africans, were never really showcased or highlighted in the European literature or English literature. They were essentially side characters. These Indian Ocean novels are firstly bringing these guys into the limelight. They are putting a spotlight onto the rich culture of this area, and they are essentially highlighting them as the complex characters that they are. It's not essentially like romanticizing that area, but it is showing that area. It is giving a place in the wider world to this area. So the author is saying that, okay, good, like we are finally getting highlighted, these guys are finally getting their place in the sun. If D is true, it is actually supporting the idea, because the author is saying that predominantly who is essentially highlighted in English literature, it is the white Europeans, Christians who are highlighted. So D, if anything, actually supports the author's assertion, it does not weaken it. So D is the right answer. The last question is, all of the following claims contribute to the remapping discussed in the passage, except remapping is basically correcting old preconceived notions. So the preconceived notions were basically because you were only looking at the white perspective. You were looking at how white people looked at Asia and Africa. The remapping occurs when you actually show the Indian Ocean novels and you show stories which are based in the Indian Ocean and are influenced by the rich culture and history of this area. So then you change your perspective about these areas because your ideas about are corrected. So suddenly you realize that, okay, the Indian Ocean world was very interconnected. Globalization actually started here. These people were able to travel and there was cultural interconnectedness between these kind of cities. So essentially this remapping or changing of perceptions is what the author has discussed in the passage. So let's take a look at the options. Indian Ocean novels have gone beyond the specifics of national concerns to explore rich regional past. This is also contributing to the remapping because you are suddenly not having only a national view. So you are not only looking at India, but rather you are looking at the role played by India in this entire global south region. So it is going to change, or rather going to make your perspective on this region better. It is going to help you correct many of the inconsistencies or like incorrect beliefs. So remapping is being, this does help remapping. The world of early international trade and commerce was not the sole domain of white Europeans. No, they were not the only travelers and sailors. There were Arabs, Africans and Indians who were travelers and sailors, and this will change your preconceived notions. So this information will also change your preconceived notions. So this is something that would do remapping. Cosmopolitanism originated in the West and traveled to the East through globalization. If this is true, that this is an idea borrowed from the West and brought to the East, it would actually not really remap your idea. Your idea is just that, right? Your belief that these are the global south is the poorer areas, the global north is the richer areas, everything good started over here and that flew into south. So all the ideas of global north were exported to global south. That is the current preconceived notion. C actually is in line with the preconceived notions, incorrect preconceived notions, if I might add. The author is actually explaining how the global south was not something where there was no interconnection. In fact, globalization started in the global south. There was cosmopolitanism in the global south. So it was not that they imported it from anywhere else. This is the culture. If you understand the culture and history of this area, you will understand how these guys were also very developed at that point of time. So C would be one which would actually not contribute to the remapping, but it would actually bolster existing preconceived notions. The global south as opposed to the global north was the first center of globalization. This is also given as something that would remap your existing preconceived notions. So D also can be eliminated. C is the right answer.
DILR feels unpredictable. It's not luck, it's a smart set selection. Many fear DILR, but how does CAT actually frames the paper? There are definitely solvable sets when you learn to navigate and pick sets from your comfort zone. And for set selection strategy, PYQs are your best resource. We Team CrackU have compiled CAT DILR questions all at one place. Just Google CAT DILR questions to practice, analyze, watch video solution and download PDFs.